Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Judith McGeary, Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance, and we really do appreciate her joining us. And, for folks that don't know who this organization is or don't care about farms and ranches, listen up. This affects everybody. This is the corporate control grid that is taking place. Judith, tell us about the organization and your position there for folks that may not know about that.
Thanks so much for having me on, Alex. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on.
Our organization was founded about 3.5 years ago when I left my legal practice and got together with a group of other farmers and ranchers to create it. And the idea is that we need a food supply that is provided by small, independent farmers scattered all over this country rather than this huge corporate monopoly that we're rapidly heading towards for our food, which is a basic necessity of life for everybody.
Well, we have the United Nations Population Fund meeting back in 1996 in Beijing, China, and they said, we will use food as a weapon. And they said, we're going to take control of the world's heirloom seeds, their food supplies. We're going to have pharmacological crops that make you take the vaccines every time you eat. People don't know they can engineer that into the crops to grow whatever mind-altering chemical or vaccine they want. They're trying to force the world to take on GMO. They're trying to make a chicken farmer put a $20 tag on a $5 chicken, but then Tyson and others are exempt. They have group tags for every couple hundred chickens. They want you to waive your rights, for those that don't know, with the premises ID. And this is all color of law. I've also read they're buying off the farm and ranch groups, giving them millions of dollars, even to local chapters, to then intimidate their members into doing it. They're arresting as publicity stunts all over the country. At the county fair, you'll have the champion pig or horse or goat or steer. And they do this on purpose, I've read, where they'll always do it to the person they pick as the winner. Then they'll say, oh, sorry, on stage, you don't get the blue ribbon now. Then they have the police take you off grounds saying you hadn't registered your premises. It's not law, but it's the policy. So they're creating a giant hoax that it's illegal and you've got to do this, just like there's a hoax you've got to take vaccines. Judith, you're the expert on this. Break it down for us.
Well, the sad thing is actually it takes a lot less than that to intimidate most people. The sad truth is they're giving a few 100,000 out and they're kicking people out before they ever get to the stage. And people are far too quick to fall in line is the sad reality. What they're talking about is that anyone who owns even one livestock or poultry animal, and this includes anybody out there who wants to raise their own food, who's been looking into the idea of having an independent food source, either that they raise or that they get from their neighbors, has to register with the government, tag each animal, in most cases using the RFIDs or the microchips, and then report their movements to the government within 24 hours. So you're talking about something that would put, someone raising food under more government surveillance than a sex offender.
And they admit, I should add, it started in Australia, as you know. They're now using the Homeland Security, NSA military satellites dialed into the land management people. So folks who live in Utah and other places or Colorado where you get harassed by the bureaucrats on your private property, that's now coming to Texas, Kansas, Michigan, Florida. It doesn't matter. And we're not joking. They're forming SWAT teams in all these federal and state groups. They're pulling guns on people at their own ponds, fishing. They're arresting Amish people, arresting people selling eggs on street corners. They've introduced bills to restrict organic farming. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, they're talking about making you get a license to have a home garden. That was in the Tulsa News. I mean, you cannot paint a strong enough picture of how evil and insidious all of this is. I hope the listeners understand this is coming down like a ton of bricks right now.
It's gaining speed fast. I mean, these are plans that they've been working on for literally decades. It's not new. It's not because of mad cow disease or avian flu or swine flu. Depending on who you talk to, they come up with a new reason. These plans have been around for decades, but they're really gathering steam now, and there are a lot of folks in Congress who are bound and determined to shove this down our throats. And they're working very hard to create this image of panic, which is if we don't have this, people will be dying. At a recent congressional hearing, one of the chairmen of the subcommittees was literally saying that, if we can't track this better, people will be dying when this food hits their
But then the
plate.
foreign food is exempt. The foreign food is exempt. So if people think we've already seen an exodus of U.S. produced food, we've gone from producing 98% of our food to half of it now, and it's going down. And in fact, I should add, and I'm rude, Judith McGeary is Executive Director of the Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance, is an attorney and small farmer, a BS in biology from Stanford University, and a JD from University of Texas at Austin. And after a clerkship with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, she practices as an attorney doing a combination of administrative law, litigation, and appeals. So I should add, you're an expert on all this as well.
Well, the thing is, the real expertise comes from handling animals. The real expertise it comes from the day-to-day, knowing what it takes to raise food, knowing what it takes to keep animals healthy. And what's amazing to me about this program and about the mentality and the mindset of the people pushing it is this attitude that somehow folks who are locked in an office who wouldn't know one end of the cow from the other somehow can come up with a technological answer that solves everything and takes care of animal health, while the farmers and ranchers obviously don't know anything, according to these guys.
Well, let me just throw a point out here, and then I want to give you the floor and have you break down how far along this is, how we fight it, how we, go up against it. We have a large piece of property we got in 1829 as a Mexican land grant in East Texas, and I don't even really deer hunt anymore because I don't have the time, don't want to have to dress it, deal with it. But every time I'm out with a telescope at night in the front yard of Grandma's old house once a year, trying to look at Saturn, rolling up without lights as a game warden. They jump out. They're rude to you. They boss you around. When I was a little kid out there, you'd see them every once in a while, and they were polite. Now they treat you like you're a piece of filth as a landowner. Now they're popping up everywhere harassing people, and they're getting federal training. Now to get a hunting or fishing license, they run your background, they run your driver's license. Everything's a tracking control grid. This is going to put federally controlled local bureaucrats into your farm, checking things without a warrant, with game warden type powers, no more Fourth Amendment, walking on saying, I want to see all your cows counted right now, $2,000 fines, and correct me if I'm going from memory, I know you're a lawyer and expert on this, if a cow got struck by lightning and you didn't report it to them, or you sold a cow to a neighbor, or a cow got out and got hit by a car. I mean, this is guilty until proven innocent tyranny over all rural communities.
Absolutely. The specific fines vary from state to state because they're talking about implementing it by state statute. Here in Texas, it's $1,000 per day would be the maximum fine. In Wisconsin, they're currently prosecuting Amish farmers, charging them $5,000 for not registering their property. So it varies from state to state, but either way, it's bad news. I mean,
they're even forcing the Amish.
20,000.
They're even 20,000. They're even forcing the Amish in. Okay, break down this horror, how bad it is. This affects everybody who's rural and then everybody who lives in the cities. This is literal. Stalin did this in Ukraine, kicking people off the land and controlling it. I mean, China does this. This is hardcore. Pol Pot did this. I mean, this is hardcore. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, in practical terms, it means that almost no one will be able to raise food animals. The big corporations will be able to. They get group identification, actually for thousands of animals. They can take one of those huge, horrific chicken farms that has, 10,000 or 20,000 birds crammed into a building and give it one ID number. And yet, small farmers or anyone trying to raise any kind of food animal, or pets even, have to individually tag each animal.
That's why we see cities passing laws making you tag your animals like San Marcos. I mean, this is so diabolical, and openly big companies like Archer Daniels, Midland, and Tyson lobbied, knowing this is going to shut down the family farm. It's over.
Absolutely. I mean, Tyson's been hip deep in this. All of the big corporations have. And, of course, they claim it's food safety, and they pretend that they're providing safe food, when the reality is it's the small farmers who you want for your safe food supply. And
unbelievable.
What you get is it's so expensive because you're talking electronic tags, and then you're talking about all the infrastructure that comes with it. So scanners and computers and internets and readers and everything else that comes with it. And keep in mind, the last census showed that 48% of farmers don't even have any internet. So
can you imagine having chickens and a game warden type punk in a uniform, but they're hiring nothing but the socialist and phony environmentalist, carbon showing up and literally cornering you. You got 5 chickens right here. You're going to jail, or, here's a $20,000 fine. This is already happening. Man, I'm sorry. Go ahead. It just makes me so angry.
It should make all of us angry. I have to sort of learn not to go crazy over it, because otherwise I'd have been locked up about 3 years ago.
We're going to beat them. Keep going.
We have to beat them, because the reality is, if you can't afford to raise food animals, then you stop raising them. And the reality for a lot of people then is they'd lose their land, because if you aren't in ag business, you lose your ag valuation on the land, and you can't afford property taxes. Which
if you don't know, I was looking at a piece of property, and if it already has an ag exemption, you can go to environmental, preserve. But once you get land and go to environmental, you can't ever go back. And they admit they don't want people farming. They're paying people to not farm. Go ahead.